If you're like me, you'll watch Clint's Reptiles and you saw him show off his emerald tree skinks and you thought, those look amazing. Are they as stinking rad as he says they are? And if you're also like me, then you found out. However, if you haven't gotten to the found out stage, I have a video today to walk through the pros and cons and to show off our emerald tree skinks. So I watched a Clint video and saw how amazing his emerald tree skinks were, and I wanted some of my own. And they'd been on my list for a while, but I also knew that I wanted to do a big enclosure that was going to be beautiful and perfect for them. And I've been researching them, and then these girls, well, this is Rosie, so she's just one of the girls, was on a table at a reptile expo, and I purchased them. So Rosie and her sisters, we call them sisters, although they, who knows, they are wild caught. They came from the wild only, I would guess, about 5 months ago. So we've had them about 2.5 months, and the importer or the distributor had got them from the importer a month before that. So they are wild creatures, and for some reason, they really do like people. So they come to the front of the enclosure and they beg to get out, and they'll chill for a long time, especially Rosie here. Rosie even likes to be pet. It is really, really cool. There are some things to know, though. It is all on their terms. Like, they do not like to be grabbed, so they're not going to want you to grab them out of their enclosure. And if they're really exploratory, we have one. Her name is Kitty, and she will jump down to explore other areas. So far, Rosie and Amelia have done a really good job at not doing that. And then each one of them does have their own personalities. So a month ago, we got a male, and so far he has not been friendly at all. In fact, he doesn't even like to be seen. So he will scoot aside to the other side of the cork bark when you come into the room. He'll be like, "You can't see me," and you'll see just his little feet, or he'll see his little snoot peeking through the leaves in the enclosure. Um, so overall, it's been a really fun experience. And today we're going to talk about the other factors of the emerald tree skink that make them stinkin' rad. So the other factor that I really love about the emerald tree skink is that they can live in groups. And I've actually learned that quite a few different species of skink do really well in groups. And it lets you set up a community tank and see more than one animal in your enclosure. And then if you do have one that is shy, it doesn't matter nearly as much because you're also likely to have one that isn't. Now, anytime that you're setting up a community enclosure, and this is true of any animals, you do have to watch out and make sure that they are getting along and that everybody's getting all the resources. It's kind of like owning two dogs and making sure they're both getting dinner. And you also want to provide them an enclosure that is providing them with multiple hiding spots, multiple basking spots, plenty of food and water, so that everybody is getting what they need. So Rosie here, she had a really bad nose rub when we got her, and it's healing up. And then she was really, really thin, and she's getting thicker now. And you can tell with the wild caught animals, they're more likely to have like scars along their sides or their tail. And just part of, they came from the wild. Captive bred is always better. And you can find these guys captive bred. Most people have a list, though. So if you can get on a breeder's list, then that is an excellent way to get emerald tree skinks. We will be breeding ours. In fact, it looks like we have at least one that is looking really gravid right now. So she was the friendliest one, the first one to come out of the enclosure. Day 2 of being put in the big enclosure, and she was coming out. And it was super cool. Her name is Amelia. And now she pretty much says, no, thank you. She's been out once in the last week, and she's looking really thick. And I think both of those things are because she's gravid. And the other factor, many animals can learn to come out and hang out with you on food because you feed them. In fact, these guys remind me a lot of the green anoles. They look very similar, and we live where there's wild green anoles. And back in Myrtle Beach, I tongue fed the green anoles on our back porch, and it got to the point where there were ones that would see me coming in for lunch, and they would actually jump onto my lap looking for bugs. These guys actually started coming out before they would take food from the tongs. So now they're tongue feeding. Well, two of the three that come out are tongue feeding, and they were doing it before food was a motivating factor. So for some reason, they just like people, or they like the experience of getting out and having your tree walk around and you can check out the things in the area. So it's really cool. So the glass really needs to be washed, but I wanted to shoot this real quick because the male is up there on the back ledge and he isn't running away yet. So over time, he's gotten a little more tolerant of us, and I'm hoping that that means that eventually he'll be more tame. So what you've just seen is some video that I shot actually about a month ago, because this video has been in the plans, but then I didn't get around to editing it, and I didn't get it posted, obviously. But I did want to touch on a little bit more on the pros and cons to give you a better idea of what you're actually getting into. I really do firmly believe that each reptile is great for somebody, but not all reptiles are great for everybody. I will not be getting any crocodilians. I will also not be getting any venomous snakes ever, unless you are going to get all technical with the fact that the hognoses are technically venomous. So I pointed out some information about the fact that these guys are really social, and it's a blast. It really, really is a blast to play with them, to hang out with them. And the fact that they continue to want to come out is really exciting. Some cons on that, though, is it really is on their terms. So our girls are often ready to get out between 10 and 2 o'clock. And if you are wanting to hold them, but it's 4 o'clock, then they're likely going to turn their faces from you and not want to come out. It can also be something that makes you feel bad. So if you walk by their enclosure and they're jumping at you into the glass, or they're like begging at the door and you don't have time, it can feel a little bad to to leave them in there. I am gonna try to post some videos that we've taken to show their behavior even more. Filming with them has been more challenging than I thought, because I have a really hard time not like paying attention to them while I am filming. So I think that their care is fairly easy and that they are durable. And this is going to be especially true if you are buying a captive bred individual. So they do best in a bioactive enclosure. They do best in larger enclosures because they are active and there is a group of them in there. So it can be expensive, and it can be a learning curve if you've never set up a bioactive enclosure before. But overall, you have added a beautiful enclosure into your home with an amazing critter, and I think that's a really positive experience in general. So it is really, really important to emphasize the fact that they're not all the same. It can be disappointing. I'm in a Emerald Tree Skink group on Facebook, and some people are disappointed that their tree skinks are not interested in coming out and playing with them. If we had just gotten the male that we have, it would have been a much more disappointing experience, although he would still be a great display pet, especially as he's gotten more and more confident with us, because we get to see him more and more often. But it would be disappointed if we were hoping to hold him and we wouldn't get it. The jumping down factor does seem to be something that is happening more and more as skinks get more confident. This is on the group. Other people have had harder experiences than we have had. We've had 2 out of 3 end up jumping down at some point, and in all those cases, they were easy to collect again. I could see, though, if you startled them or if something else in the environment startled them, then they would scramble away and try to find safety, and that would make it more difficult to collect your skink. So I do think that when you're figuring out whether or not a skink will work for you, that you'll want to take that into consideration. We do have a cat that is in the main area of the house where the skinks are, and we are very conscious of where she's at when the skinks are out. And if the skinks ever hit the ground, then we move the cat into a space where she's locked up. However, if you had more than one cat, if your cat had a bigger, like ours is a huge hunter, and she knows that she seems to know that the animals are our friends. I'm not that I would trust her or anything, but that it seems to slow her down. And we also set it up so that we are not holding this. Like I wouldn't hold the skinks if I was home alone because the cat situation. If you had a dog, that might also be a really big concern, especially if you didn't have a room where you could keep them separate. Their enclosure will not fit in the reptile room with the way that the reptile room is set up. So they are definitely in the main space in our house. And I did want to also touch on the wild caught factor. I think that if you're going to choose to get a wild caught animal, then you should know what all that entails. So a lot of times it does mean that the animal is not as healthy to begin with because it just made a long journey from the wild. It can mean that it's got wounds and injuries from living out in the wild. It's a much harder lifestyle in the wild. And it usually means that they have parasites. So if you're going to get a wild caught, you definitely want to make sure that you have a vet that is familiar with wild caught animals, that is familiar with reptiles, and that can help walk you through the processes to make sure that you are taking care of that animal. We did purchase a pair after we got our first 3, where we bought a male and a female that we were going to put in with the group, and their parasite load was just too big and they did not make it. And it was super sad. And we had tried to treat it, but it wasn't effective enough. We have also since then purchased another group, and we will eventually have 2 breeding groups set up. The others are currently in quarantine, where they're each in individual enclosures in our bedroom, and everything's kept separate to make sure that we don't move parasites around the house. And they're being treated for parasites, and a couple of them also have the real bad nose rubs. Thankfully, they look like they're healing up really well. So that's really exciting. I do believe that Amelia, at least Amelia, has laid eggs, although the general consensus is that the eggs seem to do better in the enclosure. So I haven't dug them up. And I'm hoping that we see babies in the next couple of months. And then we'll keep them for 3 to 4 months to make sure that they're growing well and they're eating well and they're healthy. Yeah, so basically I'm hoping that we will have emerald tree skinks going out to their new homes by Christmas. And it's really exciting. As soon as I have confirmed babies, then we will open up a wait list. So anybody who is interested in getting tree skinks from us would be able to get on that wait list. So overall, I think that the emerald tree skink is definitely stinking rad, and I have really enjoyed having them in our house and adding them to our lives. It has made me explore the idea of owning additional skinks and captive breeding additional skinks. There are some really amazing skink species out there that I think would be a lot of fun to own and to breed. Some of them are being bred fairly commonly, like the zebra skink can also be kept in a group and seems to be fairly friendly. The Gidgee skink is in that category. Some are being kept more frequently, but not necessarily bred that successfully, like the Schneider skinks. And I would like to level up my skink experience over time and eventually have a few different cool skink breeding projects. So it'll be super exciting. Now, right next, we're going to have our awesome egg and baby counter, which is getting more and more exciting as the season is progressing. And then YouTube will give you a recommendation. I really appreciate that you're here, and I'd love it if you took a moment to like this video and leave a comment. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love for you to subscribe. There will be an emerald tree skink care guide coming up. There's also going to be the build of our 4x2x4 bioactive enclosure that'll be coming up, as well as a lot of awesome other reptile information. We have a wide variety of geckos and several species of snakes that we're working with, and I'll be getting out more and more care guides. So lots of awesome stuff coming, and I hope that you have a great day.